Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another video of the biology series. In this particular video, we'll be completing with the 8th chapter of 12th class biology. For the ones who are new here, we do NCERT and literally every single line of it in the shortest possible time so that you can watch your videos on the go without missing anything out. So let's get started. Health for a long time was considered as a state of body and mind where there was a balance of certain humors. This is what early Greeks like Hippocrates as well as Indian Ayurveda system of medicine asserted. It was thought that persons with black bile belonged to hot personality and would have fevers. So their ideology was really baseless, having the least amount of scientific ideas into it. So what they said basically was kuch humors ka, there has to be balance of something that's known as humors, and this is what came from the Greeks and also from the Ayurvedas. And they said that the persons who had black bile, they had a very short-tempered personality and they would have fevers. Fine. The discovery of blood circulation by William Harvey using experimental method and the demonstration of normal body temperature in persons with black bile using thermometer disproved the good humor hypothesis of health. So they said that at the end, even if you have a normal personality, even if you're short-tempered or even if you're having fevers, that has nothing associated with your actual physical health. In later years, biology stated that mind influences through neural systems and endocrine system our immune system, and that our immune system maintains our health. So it has a close association rather with our brain, with our mental state, because that is going to control our endocrine system, our immune system, and eventually our health. So what is health affected by? You have genetic disorders, of course, something that is that a person is born with the defects jo already hote hain, or else the defects which are inherited from the parents. You can have infections, of course, which is communicable, and the lifestyle, including food, water we take, rest, exercise, and everything on a daily basis. How do we treat ourselves? That is also going to affect our health. The term health is very frequently used by everybody. How do we define it? Health does not simply mean absence of disease or physical fitness. It could be defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. When people are healthy, they're more efficient at work. This increases productivity and brings economic prosperity. Health also increases longevity of people and reduces infant and maternal mortality. So basically, they're trying to explain health as a state of complete, definition I guess हम बचपन से पढ़ते आ रहे हैं, complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Fine. So when we're healthy, we'll be better at work, productivity, finance, and everything is associated with it only. Then balanced diet, again a very important term. We all know about it. Personal hygiene, regular exercise, they're very important to maintain good health. Yoga has been practiced since time immemorial to achieve physical and mental health. Awareness about diseases. Awareness, again, बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है. If you don't know about a certain disease, you'll never know its effects, you'll never know the precautions. So awareness is very important. And their effect on different bodily functions. Vaccination, again, immunization against infectious diseases. Proper disposal of wastes. Control of vectors, maintenance of hygiene and food and water resources are necessary for achieving good health. When the functioning of one or more organs or systems of the body is adversely affected, characterized by appearance of various signs and symptoms, we say that we are not healthy. That is, we have a disease. Say हमारे कोई भी organ का कुछ भी functioning, it was affected in a negative sense, we say we have a disease. So they can be broadly classified into infectious and non-infectious. अब ऐसे disease is very easy, which can be transmitted, communicable है. They are the infectious ones. They're very common and every one of us suffers from these at some time or the other. Some of the infectious diseases like AIDS are also fatal. So they cannot just be taken lightly because some are really fatal. Among non-infectious, cancer is the major cause of death, and this has also been asked in NEET amongst the non-infectious ones, which is a fatal disease, and it is cancer. Drug and alcohol abuse also affect our lives very, very adversely, which we tend not to realize that, but in fact that is also affecting us in a really bad sense. So common diseases in humans, a wide range of organisms belonging to bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoans, helminths, etc. could cause diseases in man. अब हमारे पास वेरियस एजेंट्स होते हैं जिनकी वजह से डिजीजेस फैलते हैं, एंड सच डिजीज कॉजिंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स दे नोन एज पैथोजेंस, राइट. पैथोलॉजी हम उसी ब्रांच को कहते हैं जहां हम पैथोजेंस को स्टडी करते हैं. मोस्ट पैरासाइट्स आर देयरफॉर पैथोजेंस एज दे कॉज हार्म टू द होस्ट बाय लिविंग इन और ऑन देम. द पैथोजेंस कैन एंटर आवर बॉडी बाय वेरियस मीन्स एंड देन दे कैन मल्टीप्लाई and interfere with normal vital activities, resulting in morphological and functional damage. Fine. So pathogens जो है, again हमारी body में enter कर सकते हैं. They can multiply there and then eventually they'll result in affecting our activities. Fine. Pathogens have to adapt to life within the environment of the host. For example, the pathogens that enter the gut must know a way of surviving in the stomach at low pH and resisting the various digestive enzymes. A few representative members from different groups of pathogenic organisms are discussed here, along with diseases caused by them. So basically, they're trying to say every pathogen, it would know its way out inside the host. It would know all the adaptations it would have to carry out in order to live inside the host, because it's not easy to change your habitat entirely and live in somebody else's body. Now they're given certain examples. Very important. Salmonella typhi. It is a pathogenic bacterium which causes typhoid. Self-explanatory term. Fever in human beings. These pathogens generally enter the small intestines through food and water contaminated with them and migrate to other organs through blood. So कहाँ से enter हुआ? Small intestine में गया contaminated food water से, and then it will migrate to other organs through blood. Sustained high fever, weakness, stomach pain, constipation, headache, and loss of appetite are some of the common symptoms of the disease. Intestinal perforation and death may occur in severe cases. ठीक है? तो typhoid can also be fatal again. Typhoid fever could be confirmed by Vidal test. So many times asked, again very important term, although very easy. Vidal test से हम इसको test करते हैं. A classic case in medicine, that of Mary Mallon, nicknamed Typhoid Mary, is worth mentioning here. She was a cook by profession and was a typhoid carrier who continued to spread typhoid for several years through the food she prepared. Obviously, because typhoid होता ही contaminated food से है, and since she was the cook, तो हमने we named her Typhoid Mary because her actual name was Mary Mallon, and she was the one जिसकी वजह से पूरे घर में contaminated खाना spread होता था, and eventually सारे लोग बीमार हो रहे थे. Fine, that is about Salmonella typhi. Moving to the next one, that is Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. एक साथ इन्हें mention किया, they're responsible for the disease pneumonia in humans, which affects the alveoli, the air-filled sacs of the lungs. Pneumonia is closely related to the lungs. So here we see we have Streptococcus pneumoniae and we have Haemophilus influenzae causing pneumonia. As a result of the infection, the alveoli get filled with fluid, leading to severe problems in respiration. Obviously, lung associated hai, respiration mein it is going to create issues. The symptoms of pneumonia include fever, chills, cough, and headache. In severe cases, the lips and fingernails may turn grey to bluish in color. This also happens in pneumonia only. A healthy person acquires the infection by inhaling the droplets or aerosols released by an infected person, or even by sharing glasses and utensils with an infected person. Dysentery, plague, diphtheria, etc. some of the other bacterial diseases in man. So these are all because of bacteria. अभी तक हमने जो भी किया, it was due to bacteria. We talked about pneumonia. We talked about before this. We also did typhoid. This was because of bacteria. Fine. So pneumonia mein again respiratory issue hai. The alveoli will get filled with some fluid and it will lead to problems in the respiratory process. Fine. So and it has other symptoms as well. You can see grey to bluish color of the nails. Fine. Fever, chills, cough, headache, all of this. And how does it spread? By aerosols, by droplets from the infected person. Then we have many viruses. Ab viral diseases कौन से दिए हैं? They also cause disease in human beings. Rhinovirus represent one such group of viruses which cause one of the most infectious human ailments, the common cold. Very easy. We all have heard. I think we all have suffered from common cold at some point of our life, right? And this is because of rhinoviruses. बहुत important category. They infect the nose and respiratory passage, but not the lungs. This is again very important. Rhinoviruses, though they cause ऐसे issues हो जाते हैं, it might seem to be associated with lungs, but it's actually not. The common cold is characterized by nasal congestion and discharge, sore throat, hoarseness, cough, headache, tiredness, etc. I think we all have suffered from this, which usually lasts for 3 to 7 days. Droplets resulting from cough or sneeze of an infected person are either inhaled directly or transmitted through contaminated objects such as pens, books, cups, doorknobs, computer, keyboard or mouse, etc., and cause infection in a healthy person. Again, a very infectious disease can spread like anything. Fine. Some of the human diseases are caused by protozoans too. You might have heard about malaria, a disease man has been fighting since many years. We all have heard about malaria again. ठीक है, Plasmodium being the causative agent. A tiny protozoan is responsible for this disease. Different species of Plasmodium, again they've mentioned the species. We have Vivax, Plasmodium malaria, Plasmodium falciparum. They're responsible for different types of malaria. Now very important is malignant malaria. सबसे खतरनाक. It is caused by falciparum, the most serious one, and can even be fatal. This has also been asked. Let us take a glance at the life cycle of Plasmodium. Very important. Plasmodium enters the body as sporozoites. Human body में कैसे आता है? Sporozoites में आता है. This is the infectious form through the bite of infected female Anopheles mosquito, which acts as the vector, as the carrying agent. Fine. Female Anopheles ने bite किया, and in the form of the sporozoites, this Plasmodium got entered into the human body. The parasites initially multiply within the liver cells. तो पहले कहाँ होते हैं parasite? It's in the liver cells, और बाद में it will attack the red blood cells, resulting in their rupture. The rupture of RBCs is associated with the release of a toxic substance, which is hemozoin, which is responsible for the chill and high fever occurring every 3 to 4 days. So what happens? Dengue वगैरह में, malaria में, what happens is basically fevers रहते हैं, and the fever would recur, fine, from 3 days, after 3 days, every 3 to 4 days it is going to repeat. So this is due to the fact that when RBCs rupture, they're going to release a very toxic substance, and that's the hemozoin. And why did the RBCs rupture in the first place? Why? Because these sporozoites had attacked on it after they had come out from the liver cells. When a female Anopheles mosquito bites an infected person, these parasites enter the mosquito's body and undergo further development, fine. The parasites multiply within them to form sporozoites that are stored in their salivary glands. When these mosquitoes bite a human, the sporozoites are introduced into his or her body, thereby initiating the events mentioned above. It is interesting to note that the malarial parasite requires 2 hosts. You can see from here also, human है और mosquito है, 2 hosts है. So it has a digenetic life cycle. Fine, the female Anopheles mosquito is the vector, the transmitting agent too, but is also one of the organisms जहाँ पे अपना life cycle जो है उसको पूरा करते हैं. तो बेसिकली हमें बाइट किया फीमेल एनोफ्लिस मस्कीटो ने, then some healthy mosquito would come, it would bite the infected person, it would get it, then it would store it in its salivary glands, then this mosquito would bite another healthy human, and the cycle would go on. Fine, again give out sporozoites into his or her body. This is a very beautiful representation of everything. We have mosquito biting another human, sporozoites will be injected, ठीक है. उसके बाद ये liver में जाएंगे through the blood obviously, then reproduces asexually in the liver cells, bursting the cell, releasing into the blood. Then they'll reproduce asexually in the RBCs, they'll burst them also, and they'll cause cycles of fever, recurring fever, and other symptoms also. And then also the release parasites would fresh साफ सुथरे RBCs को भी attack करेंगे. Then again sexual stages developed in the RBCs, gametocytes जिनको बोलते हैं, fine. And then these gametocytes they're going to enter, female mosquito. यहाँ तक we have human host, ठीक है, जहाँ तक ये gametocytes बनाते हैं. उसके बाद these gametocytes would enter human body से ही female Anopheles में चले जाएंगे. फाइन, और उसके बाद हमारे पास है फर्टिलाइजेशन एंड डेवलपमेंट विल टेक प्लेस इन द मस्कीटोज गट. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, फर्टिलाइजेशन और डेवलपमेंट जो है हमारे इस गमीटोसाइट का जो चला गया वो कहाँ होगा? दैट विल नॉट ऑकर इनसाइड लिवर सेल्स और आरबीसीज बट इनसाइड द होस्ट, अनदर होस्ट, दैट इज द मस्कीटो होस्ट. फाइन, एंड इवेंचुअली उसके सलाइवरी ग्लैंड्स में इन्फेक्शियस स्टेज बनाएंगे स्पोरोजोइट, वो बाद में फिर से ह्यूमन बॉडी में चला जाएगा. फाइन, इन्फेक्टिव स्टेजेस, मेच्योर इन्फेक्टिव स्टेजेस, देयर sporozoites escape from the gut and migrate to the mosquito's salivary gland. So eventually store कहाँ रखा होता है उसने? Inside the salivary gland of the mosquito host. All right. Entamoeba histolytica, another protozoan. Now it's a parasite in the large intestine of human which causes amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery. Symptoms again constipation, abdominal pain, cramps, stools with excess mucus, blood clots. Houseflies act as mechanical carriers and serve to transmit the parasite from feces of infected person to food and food products, thereby contaminating them. Drinking water and food contaminated by the fecal matter, they're the main source of the infection caused by this Entamoeba histolytica, and this will cause amoebic dysentery. Fine, so again contaminated food and water, and basically that contamination is due to the fecal matter. जो usually houseflies जो है they'll carry the they'll act as vectors for the causative agent. Then we have another thing that is Ascaris, common roundworm, and Wuchereria, the filarial worm. There's some of the helminths which are known to be pathogenic to man. तो helminths में हम देखते हैं Ascaris and we have Wuchereria. So we have Ascaris, an intestinal parasite, which causes ascariasis. ठीक है, बहुत मिले जुले नाम है. Symptoms of these disease include internal bleeding, muscular pain, fever, anemia, and blockage of the intestinal passage. The eggs of the parasite are excreted along with the feces of infected person, which contaminates soil, water, plants. Again, वो cycle पर continuity में रहेगा because these eggs of the roundworm, they would be spreading all through. Fine. So ascariasis में क्या होता है? Something you have to remember, it's an intestinal parasite. And what are the symptoms? Internal bleeding, muscular pain, fever, anemia, blockage of the intestinal passage. These are all the symptoms. Then we have here Wucheria bancrofti or Malai. These are the two species given. They're the filarial worms. They cause filariasis. Fine. They cause a slowly developing chronic inflammation of the organs in which they live for many years. Usually the lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs, and the disease is called elephantiasis or filariasis. Naam se you can actually just have a look at the picture and you'll see why it's called elephantiasis. Fine. Or filariasis. It's caused by the filarial worm. तो क्या होता है basically जहाँ भी ये पैरासाइट जो है या जो भी पैथोजन हमारी बॉडी में रहता है ये वहाँ पे इन्फ्लेमेशन कॉज करता है, यूजुअली इन द लोअर लिम्स और लिम्फेटिक वेसल्स में अटैक करता है. So the genital organs are often affected, resulting in gross deformities. The pathogens are transmitted to a healthy person through the bite by a female mosquito vector. Again, vectors are also very important to remember. यहाँ पे भी हमारे पास female mosquito vector होता है. Then many fungi belonging to the genera Microsporum, Trichophyton and Epidermophyton. Again, a question has been asked from this line also. They're responsible for ringworms, which is one of the most common infectious diseases in man. We have discussed bacterial, viral, pathogenic, protozoan diseases. Now we are coming to the fungal diseases. So fungus mein, what you have to remember is, so we have Microsporum, Trichophyton, Epidermophyton. They will cause ringworms. Fine. और ये बहुत infectious consider किया जाता है in case of viral diseases. Appearance of dry, scaly lesions on various parts of the body, such as skin, nails, and scalp, are the main symptoms of the disease. Lesions, scaly lesions, and as you can see over here, this is an example of ringworm. These lesions are accompanied by intense itching, heat, and moisture help these fungi to grow. We all know heat and moisture is all the fungi would need ever, which makes them thrive in skin folds such as those in the groin or between the toes. Ringworms are generally acquired from soil or by using towels, clothes, or even the comb of infected individuals. Again, इस तरह से ये ट्रांसमिट हो जाता है और जो स्किन के फोल्ड्स होते हैं वहाँ पे इट्स लाइक अ it's a really good place for the fungi. They would enjoy being there because it's filled with moisture and heat. Maintenance of personal and public hygiene is very important for prevention and control of many infectious diseases. Ye sare infectious the, they would transmit, fine? And only thing that can prevent the infectious diseases is to maintain hygiene. Measures for personal hygiene include keeping the body clean, consumption of clean drinking water, food, vegetable, fruit. Public hygiene would include proper disposal of waste, very important, and excreta. We also have segregation nowadays, periodic cleaning, disinfection of water reservoirs, pools, cesspools, and tanks, and observing standard practice of hygiene in public catering. These measures are particularly essential where the infectious agents are transmitted through food and water such as typhoid, amoebiasis and ascariasis. ये सारे खाने की वजह से होते हैं. This is also to remember. Typhoid, ascariasis and amoebiasis all transmitted due to contaminated food and water. In cases of airborne diseases such as pneumonia and common cold, airborne droplets से spread होते हैं. In addition to the above measures, what all you have to keep in mind, close contact with the infected persons or their belongings should be avoided. Fine. For diseases such as malaria and filariasis that are transmitted through insect vectors, vectors से कौन-कौन हो रहा है? Malaria हो रहा है और filariasis हो रहा है. The most important measures is to control or eliminate the vectors and their breeding places. This can be achieved by avoiding stagnation of water in and around residential areas. Usually stagnant water में, still water में ही ये सारे agents रहते हैं. Regular cleaning of household coolers, use of mosquito nets, introducing fishes like gambusia in ponds that feed on mosquito larvae. This is very important again. Gambusia को spray करेंगे तो उससे क्या होगा? This acts as an insecticide. It feeds on the mosquito larvae. Then it says spraying of insecticides in ditches, drainage areas and swamps. In addition, doors and windows should be provided with wire mesh to prevent the entry of mosquitoes. Fine. Such precautions have become more important, especially in the light of recent widespread incidences of vector-borne diseases. जैसे Aedes mosquito है, like dengue and chikungunya in many parts of the country. Fine. In many parts of India. So this is what it tries to say. You have over here जो हमारे vector borne diseases होते हैं, जैसे हमने अभी देखा Aedes mosquito would act as a vector. So usually ऐसे areas में भी they will also cause dengue, chikungunya really infectious disease. The advancements made in biological science have armed us to effectively deal with many infectious diseases. The use of vaccines and immunization programs have enabled us to completely eradicate a deadly disease like smallpox. It's very important. What is the disease that has been completely eradicated? It's smallpox. A large number of other infectious diseases like polio, diphtheria, pneumonia, tetanus have been controlled to a large extent by the use of vaccines. Polio vaccine, I think everybody of us might know about. Biotechnology is at the verge of making available newer and safer vaccines. Discovery of antibiotics and various other drugs will also enable us to effectively treat infectious disease. So what all this trying to say in this paragraph is how we can actually prevent and how we can actually cure all of these diseases, fine, from occurring, from spreading like a havoc, fine. So we have for different borne diseases, we have waterborne diseases, we would have a certain strategy. Again, for airborne diseases we would have a different strategy. So in these paragraphs I don't think anything is to be explained further. It's just normal science, normal basics that we all know, maintaining hygienes in and around. And even biotechnology, you have done it already. Biotechnology mein hum using various microorganisms, how do we use them in human welfare. And then this gambusia thing also you have to remember, fine. And these are the various methods in which we try and prevent the spread of these diseases. Now moving on, we have the next thing, that is immunity. Very important. Every day we're exposed to a large number of infectious agents. However, only a few of these exposures result in disease. Why? This is due to the fact that the body is able to defend itself from most of these foreign agents. This overall ability of the host to fight the disease-causing organisms conferred by the immune system is called immunity. So it's innate and acquired immunity are the two types. So immunity, basically we all know, अभी तब से जो भी हम organisms के बारे में पढ़ रहे हैं, we all actually do come across all of them every day. And every contact with every organism would not lead to a disease. And this is because we have certain barriers, and they are the immunity, which is able to defend itself, with which the body has the ability to fight the diseases itself only. So we have innate immunity, we have acquired immunity. ये भी बहुत self-explanatory है. Innate, it's non-specific type of defense, जिस पे it does not depend upon a certain bacteria or a certain virus कि वो आएगा तब जाके body immunity दिखाएगी. It's non-specific. Alright, and present at the time of birth only. It's accomplished by providing different types of barriers to the entry of the foreign agents to our body. So you won't have even imagined, even skin on our body is the main barrier which prevents entry of the microorganisms. It's a physical barrier जो physically prevent करेगा microorganisms को अंदर आने के लिए, and it's present by birth, and it doesn't, the skin won't know that what organism is entering our body, so it's non-specific also. Mucus coating of the epithelium, again, respiratory, gastrointestinal, urinogenital, and whatnot, they'll also help in trapping. What do you think the mucus, why is it there for? It's only for to prevent the microorganisms from entering. Physiological barrier, again, acid in the stomach. क्यों है? Why is it so acidic? It's not easy for the pathogens to live in acidic media. Saliva in the mouth, again, tears from eyes, they all prevent microbial growth, and they're a part of physiological barriers. And cellular barriers, बहुत important, we have WBCs, the leukocytes of our body, like polymorphonuclear leukocytes, PMNL, neutrophils, and monocytes, a natural killer type of lymphocytes in the blood, as well as macrophages in tissues, can phagocytose and destroy microbes. Again, these are the cellular barriers. Then we have cytokine barriers. Virus infected cells secrete protein called interferons. ये भी पूछा गया अब तक. Virus जो infected होते हैं cells, वो कुछ ऐसा release करते हैं, that is known as interferons, जो बाकी बचे हुए non-infected cells को further viral infection से बचाते हैं. Moving on to acquired immunity, जो बचपन से हमें present नहीं होगा और जो specific होगा. Fine. It's pathogen specific. It's characterized by memory. Very important. ये भी पूछा गया अब तक. Memory पे based है हमारी acquired immunity. This means when our body encounters a pathogen for the first time, it produces a response called the primary response. पहली दफा हमारी बॉडी मिली पैथोजन से, एक प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्स आया जो लो इंटेंसिटी का था, बॉडी को पता नहीं था क्या है क्या नहीं, it was new. Subsequent encounter with the same pathogen elicits a highly intensified secondary or an anamnestic mechanism response. देखें, it is trying to say that primary response is of low intensity because it's the first time the body is encountering such a pathogen. जब subsequently बार बार ये pathogen आ रहा है तो intensity जो है response की वो बढ़ रही है, immunity जो है वो strengthen हो रही है. Fine. This is ascribed to the fact that our body appears to have memory of the first encounter Easy. The primary and secondary immune responses are carried out with the help of the two special types of lymphocytes. अब ये किस वजह से होते हैं? Responses आते हैं because of two lymphocytes present in the blood. We have the B lymphocytes and we have the T lymphocytes. Fine. We have already done कि कौन कौन से हमारे जो थे वो innate immunity में जो हमारे पास cellular barriers थे. यहाँ पे हमारे पास B lymphocytes और T lymphocytes होते हैं. The B lymphocytes produce an army of proteins in response to pathogens into our blood to fight with them. These proteins are called antibodies. Fine. Antibodies are nothing but proteins. और कहाँ से आते हैं? Antibodies come from beta lymphocytes. Fine. B lymphocytes. अब जो T cells है खुद तो वो antibodies नहीं बनाते हैं but उनका भी कुछ काम है. They'll help the B cells to produce them. Fine. Each antibody molecule has 4 peptide chains. 2 small called the light chains and 2 longer which are called the heavy chains. तो ये हमारे पास 4 polypeptide 4 peptide chains होते हैं. Fine. In every antibody. So it's represented by H2L2 because it has 2 heavy and 2 light chains. Different types of antibodies are produced in our body. We have IgA, IgM, IgE, IgG. Ig basically immunoglobulin. They're also antibodies. A cartoon of an antibody is given, ठीक है, because these antibodies are found in the blood. The response is also called as humoral immune system. ये जो हमारी B cells है, जो ये antibodies बनाते हैं, it's blood mediated, so we also call it humoral immune response. So one of the two types of our acquired immune response, that is antibody mediated. एक हमारे पास एंटीबॉडी मीडिएटेड होता है जो बेसिकली ह्यूमोरल इम्यून रिस्पॉन्स होता है बिकॉज एंटीबॉडीज विल एक्ट इन द ब्लड ओनली. देन वी हैव अनदर वन दैट इज द सेल मीडिएटेड इम्यून रिस्पॉन्स. ठीक, उसमें मोस्टली हमारे टी लिम्फोसाइट्स जो है दे आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल. फाइन. सेकेंड टाइप ऑफ all right, called the cell mediated immune response or cell mediated immunity, CMI. Fine. Again ये abbreviations भी आप याद रखा करें. NTA started to ask questions from here only. The T lymphocytes mediate CMI, that is the cell mediated immunity. Fine. Very often when some human organs like heart, eye, liver, kidney fail to function, transplantation is the only remedy. Then a search begins to find a suitable donor. Why is it that you cannot take the organ from anybody? या कभी grafts also get rejected. That's what it's trying to say. Grafts from any source, an animal, another primate, or any human being cannot be made since the graft will be rejected sooner or later. So you have to have tissue matching, blood group matching, essential before undertaking any graft or transplant. And even after this, the patient has to take immunosuppressants all or his or her life, cyclosporin वगैरह. The body is able to differentiate self and non-self, and the cell-mediated immune response is responsible for the graft rejection. So basically जो cell-mediated immune response होता है वो किस काम में हमारी help करता है? वो graft वगैरह reject करता है. Fine, not help in a sense, but this is also a sort of immunity. This is also a sort of fighting with this non-self organs, non-self tissues, जो कि body वो recognize कर सकता है. Fine, and this is only because of the T lymphocytes present in the cell-mediated immune system. Humoral immune system है simply antibodies produce हो रहे थे, proteins के जो बने होते हैं, and they're also the basically the antibody mediated immune response. So these are the two types of acquired immunities. Next we have active and passive immunity. Now what is this? When a host is exposed to antigens, which may be in the form of living or dead microbes or other proteins, antibodies are produced in the host body. Now we know इसको हम active immunity बोलते हैं. क्या मतलब है? See, जब भी हमने एंटीजन इंट्रोड्यूस कराया बॉडी में या हो गया बाय चांस, फाइन, इट कैन बी लिविंग फॉर्म, डेड फॉर्म, वट एवर फॉर्म, इट्स अ प्रोटीन एंड इट्स एंटर्ड द बॉडी नाउ, एंड नाउ एंटीबॉडीज आर गोइंग टू बी प्रोड्यूस्ड. वी सॉ अभी जस्ट हमने देखा कि एंटीबॉडी मीडिएटेड या ह्यूमोरल इम्यूनिटी जो था, फाइन, इसको हमने एक्टिव इम्यूनिटी बोला. दिस इज स्लो एंड टेक्स टाइम टू गिव इट्स फुल इफेक्टिव रिस्पॉन्स. इंजेक्टिंग द माइक्रोब्स deliberately during immunization or infectious organisms gaining access into body during natural infection induce active immunity. एक्टिव इम्यूनिटी मतलब बॉडी ने एंटीजन को देखा और उसने खुद एंटीबॉडी प्रोड्यूस किया. हम डेलिबरेटली भी इम्यूनाइज कर सकते हैं खुद से, मतलब हमने यहीं से माइक्रोब डाला या फिर ये इन्फेक्शियस हो सकता है. व्हेन रेडीमेड एंटीबॉडीज आर डायरेक्टली गिवन टू प्रोटेक्ट द बॉडी अगेंस्ट फॉरेन एजेंट्स कॉल्ड पैसिव इम्यूनिटी. समझ आई? अब एक्टिव इम्यूनिटी था कि वी गिव बॉडी द चांस टू प्रोड्यूस एंटीबॉडीज, बट पैसिव मीन्स वी आर गिविंग इट रेडीमेड इम्यूनिटी एंड द बॉडी इज नॉट डूइंग एनीथिंग in response. Fine, उसको passive बोलते हैं. Do you know why mother's milk is considered very essential for the newborn? The yellowish fluid colostrum जो milk से पहले आता है, soon after the mother's delivered the baby, what comes out is the colostrum. It's not exactly the milk, and it's secreted by the mother during the initial days of lactation, has abundant antibodies. और वो कौन से होते हैं? They are the IgA to protect the infant. The fetus also receives some antibodies from their mother through the placenta during pregnancy. These are the some examples of the passive immunity. Passive क्यों? क्योंकि a fetus is getting ready-made antibodies, and this is passive. Fine, it's not allowed to make antibodies on its own at that time. For colostrum B, it's again considered to be sort of passive immunity. Fine. Now we have vaccination and immunization. ये भी आप बचपन से करते आ रहे, very easy. Fine. हमने कुछ prepared pathogen लिया in a crux, inactivated था, weakened था, जो ज़्यादा body को affect नहीं कर सकता था. हाँ, just enough to induce the production of antibodies, because वो any which ways produce होने हैं. Antibodies आए and eventually we know this is active immunity को हमने stimulate कराया, and this is all about vaccination and immunization. Let's see what the book has to say about it. Principle of immunization or vaccination is based on the property of memory, again, of the immune system. बहुत important है, acquired immunity भी memory के ही basis पे होती है. In vaccination, a preparation of antigenic proteins of pathogen or inactivated or weakened pathogen or vaccine are introduced into the body. The antibodies produced in the body against these antigens would neutralize the pathogenic agents during actual infection. तो जब actual infection हुआ, antibodies were already present in the body and they would neutralize the action. Vaccines also generate memory, B and T cells, that recognize the pathogen quickly on subsequent exposure and overwhelm the invaders with a massive production of antibodies. ठीक? तो बहुत जंग उठते हैं because already the antibodies know, और memory based है, B और T cells already know what all is going on, they already have an idea of the pathogen, so they are producing a much intensified response. If a person is infected with some deadly microbes to which quick immune response is required, as in tetanus, we need to directly inject the performed antibodies. अभी जो passive immunity देख रहे थे, ठीक है, और antitoxin, a preparation containing antibodies to the toxin. Antitoxin is basically antibodies to the toxin. Self-explanatory term. Even in cases of snake bites, the injection which is given to the patients contain performed antibodies against the snake venom. Because बहुत जहरीला होता है and we cannot give body time to release antibodies on its own, so we give performed antibodies जिसकी वजह से quick response होता है, and this type of immunization is called passive immunization. So ये tetanus में भी again you need quick response. Fine. Recombinant DNA technologies allowed the production of antigenic polypeptides of pathogen and bacteria or yeast. Vaccines produced using this approach allow large-scale production and hence greater availability for immunization. Example, HP vaccine produced from yeast. Very important. Hepatitis B का जो vaccine है वो yeast से prepare करते हैं. अब recombinant DNA technology again हम already देख चुके हैं, हम microorganisms को use करते हैं अपने welfare के लिए. And what all we do is at the very genetic and the molecular level. Fine, we perform all of these processes and we are able to get vaccines in a greater amount. Fine. Moving on, we have allergies. When you have gone to a new place and suddenly you started sneezing, wheezing for no explained reason, and when you went away, your symptoms disappeared. Did this happen to you? Some of us are sensitive to some particles in the environment. The above mentioned reaction could be because of allergy to pollen, mites, etc., which are different in different places. So it's trying to make you recall all of your past experiences if you've suffered allergy at some point of your life or not. Fine. The exaggerated response of the immune system, look at the terminology, to a certain antigen present in the environment is called allergy. कोई certain antigen होगा और हमारी immunity जो है उसके against response दिखाएगी. The substances to which such an immune response is produced are called allergens. The antibodies produced to these are of IgE type. Very important. IgE type antibodies जो होती हैं, immunoglobulins जो होते हैं, वो produce होते हैं against allergens. Fine. Certain antigens present in the environment. And they can be different. Fine. For different organisms. Common examples of allergens are mites, in dust, pollens, animal dander, etc. Symptoms of allergic reactions include sneezing, watery eyes, running nose, and difficulty in breathing. Fine. Allergies due to the release of chemicals like histamine and serotonin from the mast cells. For determining the cause of allergy, the patient is exposed to or injected with very small doses of possible allergens and the reaction is studied. The use of drugs like antihistamine, adrenaline and steroids quickly reduce the symptoms of allergy. Somehow modern day lifestyle has resulted in lowering of immunity and more sensitivity to allergens. More and more children in metro cities of India suffer from allergies and asthma due to sensitivity to the environment. This could be because of the protected environment provided early in life. So I think what the book is trying to explain is हमारे बचपन का जो लाइफस्टाइल है उस पर भी डिपेंड करता है कि हम कितने सेंसिटिव है हर एक चीज़ की ओर. सो इफ अ पर्सन इज गिवन एक्सट्रीम केयर, extreme protection in the very early stages of life, not even allowed to go out and experience what dust looks like. So eventually जब वो बंदा कल को बाहर निकलेगा उसको dust से allergy हो जाएगी. Fine, and IgE type के immunoglobulins body में produce हो जाएंगे. So even that is responsible. So what do we take as drugs? We take antihistamine, adrenaline and steroids जो allergy के symptoms को जो है कम करते हैं. What are the symptoms? Sneezing, watery eyes, running nose, difficulty in breathing, and this is basically क्या release, कौन से chemicals हमारी body में आते हैं? Histamine, serotonin, and they're released from the mast cell. So this is about allergy. All you have to know in this topic. All right, now we have autoimmunity, the next topic. Memory-based acquired immunity evolved in higher vertebrates based on the ability to differentiate foreign organisms, example pathogens, from self cells. While we still do not understand the basis of this, two corollaries of this ability have to be understood. One, higher vertebrates can distinguish foreign molecules as well as foreign organisms. Most of the experimental immunology deals with this aspect. Two, sometimes due to genetic and other unknown reasons, the body attacks self cells. This results in damage to the body and is called autoimmune disease. Rheumatoid arthritis, which affects many people in our society, is an autoimmune disease. So basically कह रहा है memory based immunity तभी arise होती है जब हमारी body differentiate कर पाती है self और non self cells को. Fine, and that's only possible because there's some sort of memory power in the immune system. Then certain times what happens, some you can say some disorder, some genetic disorder, some fault is there जिसकी वजह से body differentiate नहीं कर पाती है and eventually starts to attack its own cells. Fine, and that is known as autoimmune disease. Ab immune system in the body. The human immune system consists of lymphoid organs, tissues, cells, insoluble molecules like antibodies. ठीक है, तो lymphatic system सबसे importantly, as you've read, immune system is unique to the sense that it recognizes foreign antigens, responds to these and remembers them. The immune system also plays an important role in allergic reactions, autoimmune diseases and organ transplantation, just rejecting the grafts and everything that we did right now. Lymphoid organs, पहली चीज, ये ऐसे organs हैं जहाँ origination या maturation और even proliferation of the lymphocytes would occur. Lymphatics में क्या होता है, जो lymphocytes होते हैं वो mature होते हैं, able now to attack the foreign agents. The primary lymphoid organs include bone marrow and thymus, जहाँ पे immature lymphocytes जो होते हैं वो differentiate होके antigen sensitive lymphocytes बनाते हैं. So what are the two primary lymphoid organs? Very important. We have bone marrow and तो प्राइमरी लिम्फॉइड ऑर्गन्स में तैयार होके अब एंटीजन सेंसिटिव बन गए लिम्फोसाइट्स एंड नाउ दे रेडी टू अटैक. अब आफ्टर मैच्योरेशन स्टोर कहाँ रहेंगे? दे माइग्रेट टू द सेकेंडरी लिम्फॉइड ऑर्गन्स लाइक स्प्लीन, लिम्फ नोड्स, टॉन्सिल्स, पियर्स, पैचेस ऑफ स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन एंड अपेंडिक्स. द सेकेंडरी लिम्फॉइड ऑर्गन्स प्रोवाइड द साइट्स फॉर इंटरेक्शन ऑफ द लिम्फोसाइट्स विद द एंटीजन व्हिच देन proliferate to become affected cells. अब क्या हो गया, एंटीजन लिम्फोसाइट इंट्रैक्शन विल टेक प्लेस ओनली इन द सेकेंडरी लिम्फॉइड ऑर्गन्स जिसमें लिम्फ नोड, टॉन्सिल, पियर्स, पैचेस ऑफ द स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन एंड स्प्लीन, अपेंडिक्स वगैरह आते हैं और इवेंचुअली दे फॉर्म अफेक्टेड सेल्स. Then various lymphoid organs, उनका यहाँ पे लोकेशन दिया हुआ है. Fine, you have lymphatics and everything. The bone marrow is the main lymphoid organ where all blood cells including lymphocytes are produced. The thymus is a lobed organ located near the heart and beneath the breastbone. The thymus is quite large at the time of birth but keeps reducing in size with the age, and by the time puberty is attained it reduces to a very small size. So endocrinology में भी हम देखते हैं कि thymus gland जो है इनिशियली बहुत बड़ा होता है, धीरे धीरे छोटा हो जाता है. बोथ बोन मैरो एंड थाइमस प्रोवाइड माइक्रो एनवायरनमेंट्स फॉर द डेवलपमेंट एंड मैच्योरेशन ऑफ टी lymphocytes. The spleen is a large bean-shaped organ. हाँ, अब spleen भी आ गया. It mainly contains lymphocytes and phagocytes. It acts as a filter of the blood by trapping the blood-borne microorganisms. Fine, filter of blood, spleen. जहाँ भी उसने देखा कोई microorganism है उसको trap करेगा. It also has a large reservoir for erythrocytes. Very important, and it's also known as the graveyard of RBCs because all the dead and all the decayed erythrocytes वो सारे कहाँ जाते हैं? Spleen में जाते हैं. फिर lymph nodes आ जाते हैं. There are small solid structures located at different points along the lymphatic system. कहीं कहीं होते हैं. They serve to trap the microorganisms or other antigens which happen to get into the lymph and tissue fluid. तो lymphatics की clarification के लिए lymph nodes होते हैं at certain locations जो उसको clarify करते हैं. Antigens trapped in the lymph nodes are responsible for the activation of lymphocytes present there and cause the immune response. जो lymphocytes lymph nodes में बंधे हुए होते हैं वो activate हो जाते हैं as soon as antigens are trapped in there, and then they start producing the immune response. Fine. So this was all about the places, the various locations in the body जहाँ पे हमारे अंदर immune systems present हैं in the various forms. We have primary lymphoid organs हमारे पास जहाँ पे thymus और जिसमें हमारा आता है we have thymus and बोन मैरो जहाँ पे प्रोडक्शन होता है, मिच्योरेशन होता है, प्रोलिफरेशन होता है इन सब लिम्फोसाइट्स का, और इवेंचुअली फिर उनको बाद में स्टोर करने के लिए, इंटरेक्शन करने के लिए इवेंचुअली जहाँ पे वो अफेक्टेड सेल्स बनते हैं वो सेकेंडरी लिम्फोइड ऑर्गन्स होते हैं. फाइन. सो देव ऑल्सो एक्सप्लेन सम ऑफ दीज ऑर्गन्स in a bit detail. There's lymphoid tissue also located within the lining of the major tracts, जैसे respiratory, digestive and urinogenital tracts. हर पूरी बॉडी में सारे ट्रैक्ट्स में ऐसे लाइनिंग है, ठीक है, जिसको म्यूकोसा एसोसिएटेड lymphoid tissue बोलते हैं, which is MALT. Fine. Mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. So it constitutes about 50% of the lymphoid tissue inside the body. सारे tracts को जो mucus coat करता है वो भी एक lymphatic tissue बनाता है, ठीक, और 50% से ज़्यादा almost इसमें lymphoid tissue आता है. Now coming to AIDS. The word AIDS stands for acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. This means deficiency of immune system acquired during the lifetime of an individual, indicating that it is not a congenital disease because we are acquiring it. Okay? At some point of time, it's been acquired by the infected person. Syndrome means a group of symptoms. AIDS was first reported in 1981, and in the last 25 years or so, it has spread all over the world, killing more than 25 million persons. ठीक है, 1981 में सबसे पहले रिपोर्ट हुआ था. AIDS is caused by human immunodeficiency virus HIV, a member of a group of viruses called the retroviruses. ठीक है, जिनके पास reverse transcriptase होता है. We've done it already. Which have an envelope enclosing the RNA genome. Transmission of HIV infection generally occurs by sexual contact with infected person, by transfusion of contaminated blood and blood products, by sharing infected needles, as in the case of intravenous drug abusers, from infected mother to her child through placenta. तो ये सारे ways हैं जिनके through AIDS can spread. So people who are at high risk of getting this infection includes the individuals who have multiple sexual partners, drug addicts who take drugs intravenously, individuals who require repeated blood transfusions, and children born to an HIV-infected mother. Obviously, because ये सारे ही transmitting agents बन जाते हैं for the spreading of AIDS virus. It is important to note that HIV or AIDS is not spread by mere touch or physical contact. It spreads only through body fluids. Very important. Fluids के through spread होता है. It hence imperative for the physical and psychological well-being that the AIDS-infected persons are not isolated from family and society. ठीक है, तो हम उनको पूरी तरीके से अलग नहीं कर सकते. We cannot make them feel like they're, they're not supposed to exist or stuff. There's always a time lag between the infection and appearance of AIDS symptoms. This period may vary from a few months to many years. तो appearance of symptoms और infection के बीच में काफ़ी टाइम होता है, जिसकी वजह से बहुत late detect होता है, और जो भी disease हम बहुत बाद में detect करते हैं, there's high risk of that disease. After getting into the body of the person, the virus enters into macrophages, where RNA genome of the virus replicates to form viral DNA with the help of the enzyme reverse transcriptase. Already been taught. इसमें क्या होता है, transcription का ही उल्टा हो जाता है. फाइन. ट्रांसक्रिप्शन में क्या होता है, बेसिकली आरएनए से अब ये डीएनए बनाएगा. इसमें है तो आरएनए जीनोम, ये बनाएगा वायरल डीएनए. ठीक है, reverse transcription when it enters into the macrophages. Fine. And it is going to control the genetic machinery of the macrophages. अब macrophages क्या थे, हमारे immunity वाले cells. ये तो phagocytose करते थे सारे infections को, तो इनको किसने control किया, अब हमारे जो हमारे पास यहाँ पे RNA genome था. This viral DNA gets incorporated into the host cell's DNA and directs the infected cells to produce virus particles. अब इसकी सारी machinery चलेगी because now it has taken control over the genetic material of the host. Fine. The macrophages continue to produce virus and in this way acts like HIV factory. अब eventually कौन produce कर रहा है continuously? It's only the macrophages. So they'll now be the HIV factory. Simultaneously, HIV enters into the helper T lymphocytes, TH. ठीक है, helper T में उधर replicate हो गया and will produce progeny virus. So the progeny virus released in the blood attack other helper T lymphocytes. This repeated leading to a progressive decrease in the number of helper T lymphocytes in the body of the infected person. During this period, the person suffers from bouts of fever, diarrhea, weight loss. Due to decrease in the number of helper T lymphocytes, person starts suffering from the infections that could have been otherwise overcome, such as those due to bacteria, especially mycobacterium, viruses, fungi, and even parasites like toxoplasma. Mycobacterium या toxoplasma ऐसी चीजें थी जो हमारी body otherwise बिना virus के it was able to cope up with all of that. Now a person infected with HIV, what happens to that is वो अब ये normal viruses, वो ये अब ये normal diseases जो है उनको भी withstand नहीं कर पाएगा, ठीक, बिकॉज अटैक किस पे हुआ है, लिम्फोसाइट्स पे हुआ है, तो इम्यूनिटी जो है उसमें डेफिशिएंसी आई है. द पेशेंट बिकम्स सो इम्यूनोडेफिशिएंट दैट ही और शी इज अनेबल टू प्रोटेक्ट हिमसेल्फ और हरसेल्फ अगेंस्ट these infections. A widely used diagnostic test for AIDS is enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, which is the ELISA test. Fine. Treatment of AIDS with antiretroviral drugs is only partially effective. You cannot completely treat this disease. This can only prolong the life of the patient but cannot prevent death, which is inevitable. Prevention बहुत important है. As AIDS has no cure, इसमें prevention is the best option. HIV infection more often spreads due to conscious behavior patterns and it's not something that happens inadvertently. Like अच्छा inadvertently ये कह रहे हैं कि कुछ ऐसी चीज़ नहीं है जो खुद से हो जाए, you know, और आपको पता भी नहीं चलेगा. ये usually consciousness में ही this would happen. Like pneumonia और typhoid वो खुद हो जाते हैं. आपने खाना खाया, you're not aware, you cannot see the pathogen. But here of course infection in blood transfusion patients, newborns, of course they cannot guide the disease, may take place due to poor monitoring. The only excuse may be ignorance, and it has been rightly said, don't die of ignorance. In our country, the National AIDS Control Organization, NACO, National AIDS Control Organization, सारे abbreviations important, and other NGOs are doing a lot to educate people about AIDS. So awareness, मैंने starting में ही बोला, बहुत important है. World Health Organization has started a number of programs to prevent the spreading of HIV infection, making blood from blood banks safe. बहुत important है क्योंकि blood transfusion से भी ये बहुत खतरनाक तरीके से spread हो जाता है. It has to be ensured that it's safe. Fine. पता चला बंदा यहाँ से गया, उसको वो ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन के लिए अपनी लाइफ बचाने के लिए, एंड वो बहुत बड़े इशू में पड़ रहा है. मेकिंग अच्छा ब्लड सेफ, इंश्योरिंग द यूज ऑफ ओनली डिस्पोजेबल नीडल्स, सिरिंजेस इन पब्लिक एंड प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स एंड क्लिनिक्स, फ्री डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ कॉन्डम्स, कंट्रोलिंग ड्रग अब्यूज, advocating safe sex and promoting regular checkups for HIV is susceptible populations. Are some such steps taken up. तो जहाँ में भी आपको लगेगा the people are vulnerable, you are going to promote all of this awareness and stuff and guide them throughout so that they know what it is, and spreading awareness of course is very important. और ये भी नहीं होना चाहिए, like it already said, the book says that you do not have to completely eradicate that person or completely disown that person in any sense, but you have to be humane to them as well. Infection with HIV or having AIDS is something that should not be hidden since then. वही अभी इस paragraph में लिख रहा है, the infection may spread to many more people if you keep it hidden. They need help and sympathy instead of being shunned by the society. Unless society recognizes it as a problem to be dealt with in a collective manner, the chances of wider spread of the disease increase manifold. अब बंदा बोलेगा नहीं, it's going to spread like anything. Fine, it's a malady that can only be tackled by the society and medical fraternity acting together to prevent the spread of the disease. Unless and until you stop looking down upon the people having this disease, they're going to at least talk about it openly. Then we have cancer again, a non-infectious deadly disease, one of the most dreaded diseases of human beings, and is a major cause of death all over the globe. Very, very important. More than 1 million Indians suffer from cancer and a large number of them die from it annually. The mechanisms that underlie development of cancer or oncogenic transformation of cells, its treatment and control have been some of the most intense areas of research in biology and medicine. Because आपने भी सुना होगा बचपन से, that even the term बहुत खूंखार लगता है, it's cancer, because it's been so deadly always, right? In our body, cell growth and differentiation is highly controlled and regulated. In cancer cells, this breakdown of these regulatory mechanisms. Normal cells show a property called contact inhibition, by virtue of which contact with other cells inhibits their uncontrolled growth. Cancer cells appear to have lost this property. As a result of this, cancerous cells just continue to divide, giving rise to masses of cells called tumors. फाइन, अब क्या हो रहा है, मासेस बन रहे, कॉन्टैक्ट इनहिबिशन नहीं है, सेल के बाजू में एक और सेल है, फिर भी वो नहीं रुक रहा है डिवीजन करने से, तो इसकी वजह से क्या हो रहा है, अनकंट्रोल डिवीजन हो रहा है, विच इज समथिंग रियली अबनॉर्मल इन केस ऑफ सेल डिवीजन. तो इसकी वजह से ट्यूमर्स बन रहे हैं. दे कैन बी टू टाइप्स, benign and malignant. Benign में they normally they'll remain confined to their original location. जैसे you have moles, they're again benign tumors. Fine, they do not spread to other parts of the body and they cause little damage. Then we have malignant tumors. On the other hand, there are massive proliferating cells called neoplastic or tumor cells. Fine. These cells grow very rapidly, invading and damaging the surrounding normal tissues. As these cells actively divide and grow, they also starve the normal cells by competing for vital nutrients. Obviously, now the body has to supply nutrients to a lot of cells, and they're going to compete for the normal cells, for food with the normal cells. Eventually, उस वाइज भी न्यूट्रिटिवली भी बहुत डेफिशिएंसी होगा. Cells slowed from such tumors reach distant sites through blood, and wherever they get lodged in the body, they start a new tumor there. This property is called metastasis. Is the most feared property of the malignant tumors. एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाएंगे और जहां भी जाएंगे वहां पे जो है ट्यूमर इंड्यूस करेंगे. What are the causes now? Transformation of normal cells into cancerous cells or oncogenic cells. Neoplastic cells may be induced by physical, chemical or biological agents. ठीक है, कुछ agents होते हैं जिसकी वजह से इतना deadly disease जो है वो आ रहा है. These agents are called carcinogens. Ionizing radiations like X-rays and gamma rays, and non-ionizing radiations like UV rays cause DNA damage, leading to neoplastic transformation. What is happening? We are having various agents which can cause cancers, which can induce this tumor formation inside the body. Fine. So we can have ionizing radiations, जैसे X-rays है, gamma rays है, non-ionizing में UV rays है. वो क्या करते हैं? DNA में mutations लाते हैं. Fine. The chemical carcinogens present in tobacco smoke have been identified as a major cause of lung cancer. Cancer-causing viruses called oncogenic viruses have genes called viral oncogenes. Fine. Furthermore, several genes called cellular oncogenes, C-onc, or proto-oncogenes have been identified in normal cells, which when activated under certain conditions could lead to oncogenic transformation of the cells. So कुछ cells जो होती हैं उनमें already proto-oncogenes या cellular oncogenes, C-onc लिखा हुआ है bracket में, वो ऐसे होते हैं genes जो normal cells में भी present होते हैं, but yes, again they're vulnerable to get converted into oncogenic transformations. Fine. Next up, we have cancer detection and diagnosis. Early detection of cancers is essential as it allows the disease to be treated successfully. I think this applies for almost every disease. Cancer detection is based on biopsy and histopathological studies of the tissue and blood and bone marrow tests for increased cell counts in the case of leukemias. In biopsy, a piece of the suspected tissue cut into thin sections is stained and examined under microscope, histopathology, by a pathologist. Techniques like radiography, use of X-rays, CT, computed tomography, and MRI, magnetic resonance imaging are very useful to detect cancers of the internal organs. ठीक है, अंदर से tissue ले लिया, उसको biopsy के लिए you cut it into thin sections and then you study it. Fine. Then we have MRIs, उसमें magnetic rays use करते हैं. Computed tomography uses X-rays to generate a three-dimensional image of the internal organs of an object. ठीक है, internal organs जो है किसी भी body के X-rays से हम CT scan वगैरह कराते हैं. MRI uses strong magnetic fields and non-ionizing radiations. हाँ, MRI में non-ionizing magnetic fields होते हैं to accurately detect pathological and physiological changes in the living tissue. So this is how you actually detect it. Antibodies against cancer-specific antigens are also used for detection of certain cancers. Techniques of molecular biology can be applied to detect genes in individuals which with inherited susceptibility to certain cancers. Identification of such genes which predispose an individual to certain cancers may be very helpful in prevention of cancers. ठीक है, कुछ genes already, like I said, proto-oncogenes. If you can identify them, it can be very useful in prevention of cancers in the later stages of life. Such individuals may be advised to avoid exposure to particular carcinogens to which they are susceptible. Example, tobacco smoke in case of lung cancer. ट्रीटमेंट क्या है? अब अगेन इसमें थेरेपीज होते हैं जिसकी वजह से आप कुछ भी रेज ऐसे पास कराते हैं कि जो ट्यूमर सेल्स है वो डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाते हैं, बट देयर इज आल्सो अ हाई रिस्क ऑफ डैमेजिंग द नॉर्मल सेल्स. फाइन, सो दैट इज द ट्रीटमेंट in a crux. The common approaches for treatment of cancer are surgery, radiation therapy, and immunotherapy. In radiotherapy, tumor cells are irradiated lethally, taking proper care of the normal tissues, which is very, very ideally, हम सब tissues को बचा पाते हैं surrounding the tumor mass. Several chemotherapeutic drugs are used to kill cancerous cells. Some of these are specific for particular tumors. Majority of drugs have side effects like hair loss, anemia, etc. Most cancers are treated by combination of surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy because बहुत deadly disease है. Tumor cells have been shown to avoid detection and destruction by immune system. Therefore, the patients are given substances called biological response modifiers such as alpha interferons. ये भी पूछा गया है, which activate their immune system and help in destroying the tumor. तो अब ये ट्यूमर ऐसी भला है जो immune system से भी खुद को छुपा के रख सकती है, so that the immune system cannot actually detect कि कौन सा सेल है. ठीक है, तो उसके लिए हम immune system को biological response modifiers use करते हैं. That is the alpha interferon, for example, we use, जिसकी वजह से immunity जो है वो बढ़ जाती है और body को पता चलता है कि okay, we also have to show response to such and such stuff. Now, moving on to to another important topic, that is drugs and alcohol abuse. Surveys and statistics show that use of drugs and alcohol has been on the rise, especially among the youth. This is really a cause of concern as it could result in many harmful effects. Proper education and guidance would enable youth to safeguard themselves against these dangerous behavior patterns and follow healthy lifestyles. The drugs which are commonly abused are opioids, cannabinoids, and coca alkaloids. Majority of these are obtained from flowering plants, some are obtained from fungi. ओपियोइड्स, अब अच्छा ड्रग्स जो है यूथ में बहुत ज़्यादा कॉमन है, एजुकेशन की कमी है, गाइडेंस की कमी है, और so many other reasons जिसकी वजह से people would take to drugs. And what are the major drugs which are abused? We have opioids, cannabinoids, and coca alkaloids. Opioids are the drugs which bind to specific opioid receptors जो हमारे CNS में present होते हैं and gastrointestinal tract. Heroin जो है which is commonly called smack. अब इस paragraph से एक एक word important है, it's been asked so many times, alright? Even these diagrams are very important, so I would recommend you to go through them. इसमें कुछ ज़्यादा explain करने के लिए नहीं है, but stuff you have to actually remember. Fine. So heroin, also known as smack, chemically diacetyl morphine. एसिटाइलेशन कराते हैं मॉर्फिन की तो हेरोइन मिलता है जिसको स्मैक भी बोलते हैं. फाइन. विच इज़ अ वाइट ओडरलेस बिटर क्रिस्टलिन कंपाउंड इज ऑब्टेन बाय एसिटाइलेशन ऑफ मॉर्फिन, जैसा मैंने ऑलरेडी बोला, विच इज एक्सट्रैक्टेड फ्रॉम द लेटेक्स ऑफ पॉपी प्लांट पैपावर सोमनिफेरम. यहाँ से हम लाते हैं हमारा मॉर्फिन, उसको करते हैं एसिटाइलेशन, सो वी गेट हेरोइन. फाइन. विच इज ऑल्सो नोन एज स्मैक. यू कैन सी this is morphine ka structure and this is the opium poppy. This is the plant from where it is extracted. Generally taken by snorting and injection, heroin is a depressant and slows down body functions. Alright. Cannabinoids. Now another group of chemicals which interact with cannabinoid receptors present principally in the brain. तो इन chemicals के receptors होते हैं brain को, which would make a person feel like something else and which eventually has a really bad effect on a person's life. Natural cannabinoids are obtained from the inflorescences of the plant cannabis sativa. ठीक है, naturally इसके the flower tops, leaves, raisins of cannabis are used in various combinations to produce marijuana, hashish, charas, and ganja. Generally taken by inhalation and oral ingestion, these are known for their effects on cardiovascular system of the body. So you can remember C for cannabinoids and C for cardiovascular system of our body affects it. ठीक है, cannabis sativa से ले आते हैं, उसके various parts का various proportions में कुछ बना के finally it's abused. Then you have a skeletal structure of the cannabinoid molecule. Fine. तो ऐसा कुछ है. and this also we have over here the leaves of cannabis sativa जहाँ से हम इसको extract करते हैं. alright, moving on, we have coca alkaloid or cocaine. हाँ, इसको हम लाते हैं, it's obtained from coca plant which is basically Erythroxylum coca. It's native to South America. Fine. Erythroxylum coca से cocaine लाते हैं, native to South America. It interferes with the transport of the neurotransmitter dopamine. उसका ट्रांसपोर्ट होने के साथ कुछ इंटरफेरेंस करता है. Cocaine, commonly called coke or crack, is usually snorted. It has a potent stimulating action on central nervous system, producing a sense of euphoria and increased energy. Fine. Cocaine से क्या लिखते हैं? State sense of euphoria, लगता है we are in some other world, we don't know what's happening, we lose our senses to an extent and we feel increased energy. Excessive dosage of cocaine causes hallucinations. Fine. कुछ ऐसी चीजें दिखती हैं जो दूसरों को नहीं दिख रही. Other well-known plants with hallucinogenic properties are Atropa belladonna and Datura. Fine, ये भी important है. Atropa belladonna and you have Datura. These days cannabinoids are also being abused by some sports persons, right? Feel more energetic or whatever. Drugs like barbiturates, amphetamines, and benzodiazepines, there are other similar drugs that are normally used as medicines to help patients cope with mental illness like depression and insomnia are often abused. अब ऐसे हैं जो नॉर्मली तो हम मेडिसिन की तरह यूज़ करते हैं, बट अगेन लोगों को लगता है इट्स हेल्पिंग अस ओवरकम डिप्रेशन, इंसोम्निया. फाइन. तो इवेंचुअली पीपल विल स्टार्ट अब्यूजिंग द ड्रग्स, वरना है तो ये मेडिसिनल वैल्यू के. ठीक है, वी हैव बार्बिचुरेट्स, वी हैव एम्फेटामिन्स एंड वी हैव बेंजोडाइazepine. Morphine is a very effective sedative and painkiller. It was also taken as an anesthesia earlier times and is very useful in patients who have undergone surgery. They won't feel the pain. Several plants, fruits, and seeds having hallucinogenic properties, genic properties have been used for hundreds of years in folk medicine, religious ceremonies, and rituals all over the globe. When these are taken for a purpose other than medicinal use or in amounts of frequency that impairs one's physiological, or psychological functions, it constitutes drug abuse. हम normally उसको consume नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम उसको एक different frequency के साथ consume कर रहे हैं, हमारे intentions different है, we are still normal yet we are taking the drug. This means drug abuse. Fine. So these were all the examples. Smoking also paves the way to hard drugs. Smoking again. Tobacco has been used by human beings for more than 400 years. It's smoked, chewed, used as a snuff. Tobacco contains a large number of chemical substances including nicotine and alkaloid. Nicotine क्या है? Alkaloid है. कभी कभार there are people, stupid people who feel like smoking would not come under this drug abuse and it's a certain different category, but it's not so. It's also paving the way for hard drugs, as the line says. Nicotine stimulates adrenal gland to release adrenaline and noradrenaline into blood circulation. Both of which raise blood pressure and increase the heart rate. Nicotine से क्या हो रहा है? Adrenaline, noradrenaline आ रहे हैं blood circulation में और blood pressure और heart rate जो है वो increase हो रहे हैं. Smoking is associated with increased incidence of cancers of lung, urinary bladder and throat, bronchitis, emphysema, coronary heart disease, gastric ulcer, etc. Tobacco chewing is associated with increased risks of cancer of the oral cavity. Chewing वगैरह. Smoking increases carbon monoxide content in blood and reduces the concentration of heme-bound oxygen. This causes oxygen deficiency in the body as well. ठीक है? तो सांस से फूल जाएंगी. Why? Because carbon monoxide का content जो है वो ज़्यादा हो रहा है blood में और जो heme-bound oxygen है वो कम हो रहा है. Because अब किससे hemoglobin is going to bind to carboxy hemoglobin बनाएगा because carbon monoxide से bind करेगा. It has more tendency for hemoglobin than oxygen. When one buys packets of cigarettes, one cannot miss the statutory warning that is present in the packing, which warns against smoking and says how it's injurious to health. Yet smoking is very prevalent. I think we all have seen that dabba, which has a lot, it has a dreadful picture over it, right? Yet smoking is very prevalent in society, both among young and the old. Knowing the dangers of smoking and chewing tobacco and its addictive nature, the youth and the old need to avoid these habits. Any addict requires counseling and medical help to get rid of the habit. अगर बात बहुत seriously बढ़ गई and the person's not ready to give it up, then he or she has to consult medical help. Adolescence and drug abuse. Now, what is the relation? Adolescence means both a period and a process during which a child becomes mature in terms of his or her attitudes and beliefs for effective participation in society. That's how we mold ourselves to become adults now, to become citizens of citizens who are actually responsible. Fine. The period between 12 to 18 years of age may be thought of as adolescence period. In other words, adolescence is a bridge linking childhood and we have adulthood. Adolescence is accompanied by several biological and behavioral changes. Adolescence thus is a very vulnerable phase of mental and psychological development of an individual. So if you're studying biology right now, you might already be going through that phase and you know it's a period, it's a phase of extreme exertion mentally and physically also and psychologically as well, because you're developing and the development is at its peak. So you always have to remember that this is the time where you can achieve, I think, anything you can. So you should not stop because you have capabilities innumerable. It's just that you have to know your capabilities. You have to know in what sense you're going to use your abilities जो अभी बहुत ज़्यादा prevalent होंगे. अभी there's nothing that can stop you. You can achieve whatever you want. Curiosity, need for adventure and excitement and experimentation constitute common causes which motivate youngsters towards drug and alcohol use. बहुत सारे reasons होते हैं. A child's natural curiosity motivates him or her to experiment. This is complicated further by effects that might be perceived as benefits of alcohol or drug use. Thus, the first use of drugs or alcohol may be out of curiosity or experimentation, but later the child starts using these to escape facing problems. So a person would feel completely different. So the first time it might just be ek dafa, just give it a try, just see what it is, but eventually it leads to addiction. Of late, stress from pressures to excel in academics or examinations has played a significant role in persuading the youngsters to try alcohol and drugs. The perception among youth that it is cool or progressive to smoke, use drugs or alcohol is also in a way a major cause for youth to start these habits. Television, movies, newspapers, internet also help to promote this perception. Other factors that have been seen to be associated with drug and alcohol abuse among adolescents are unstable or unsupportive family structures and peer pressure. So there are many ways, many reasons, innumerable reasons जहाँ से a person is either forced or excited towards trying such things, but eventually he's falling into a trap. Addiction and dependence. हाँ, इसमें आप withdrawal symptoms देखेंगे, fine, because of the perceived benefits. Perceive कर रहे हैं, actual में कोई benefit नहीं है, it just seems to be like a benefit. Drugs are frequently used repeatedly. The most important thing which one fails to realize is the inherent addictive nature of alcohol and drugs. Addiction is a psychological attachment to certain effects such as euphoria and a temporary feeling of well-being associated with drugs and alcohol. किसी चीज़ के साथ आप addict हो रहे हैं, किसी चीज़ के साथ आप attach हो रहे हैं, आपको लग रहा है ये शायद कहीं तरीके से helpful है, it's making you feel wonders for a certain period of time, fine. These drive people to take them even when these are not needed or when their use becomes self-destructive. So people will not stop, come what may. एक दफ़ा लग गई addiction, लग गई. With repeated use of drugs, the tolerance level of the receptors present in our body increases. अगर एक दफ़ा one sip would do the job, next time you might have to take two, fine. Consequently, the receptors respond only to higher doses of drugs or alcohol, leading to greater intake and addiction. However, it should be clearly borne in mind that use of these drugs even once can be a forerunner to addiction. So you cannot even take a chance of experimenting because you never know if you take it once. आगे क्या होने वाला है? Thus, the addictive potential of drugs and alcohol pull the user into a vicious circle leading to their regular use or abuse from which he or she may not be able to get out. In the absence of any guidance or counseling, the person gets addicted and becomes dependent on their use. Dependence is the tendency of the body to manifest a characteristic and unpleasant withdrawal syndrome if regular dose of drugs is abruptly discontinued. Dependence इस तरीके की है कि अगर 2 दिन तक या अगर 4 दिन तक वो चीज़ नहीं मिली, body will show symptoms which are pathetic. This is characterized by anxiety, shakiness, nausea, sweating, may be relieved when use is resumed again. You cannot एक साथ आप एकदम से ख़त्म भी नहीं कर सकते हैं उसका intake. Then it's so harmful. In some cases, withdrawal symptoms can be severe and even life-threatening, and the person may need medical supervision. Dependence leads the patient to ignore all social norms in order to get sufficient funds to satiate his or her needs. These result in many social adjustment problems. So a person can take to wrong things because अभी the only thing that would matter to him other than family, other than any other thing, career तो दूर का ही रखो आप सवाल, but this is really harmful. So the person will do anything, go to heights to fulfill his own requirements. Then we have effect of drug or alcohol abuse. अब इससे होता क्या है? We all know, I don't think something new or something, you know, जो बहुत नया या different है. We all know its adverse effects, right? The immediate adverse effects of drug and alcohol abuse are manifested in the form of reckless behavior, vandalism and violence. ठीक है, कुछ भी इसमें से आप देखेंगे symptoms के तौर पे excessive doses of drugs may lead to coma and death due to respiratory failure, heart failure or cerebral hemorrhage. So इतनी सारी चीजें हो सकती हैं अगर excessive quantity में ले रहा है बंदा. A combination of drugs with their intake along with alcohol generally results in overdosing and even deaths. The most common warning signs of drug and alcohol abuse among youth include drop in academic performance, unexplained absence from school or college, lack of interest in personal hygiene, withdrawal, isolation, depression, fatigue, aggressive behavior, rebellious behavior, deteriorating relationships with family and friends, loss of interest in hobbies, change in sleeping and eating habits, fluctuations in weight, appetite, etc. और का कभी-कभी combination भी होता है, person would be aggressive at the same time, उसी वक्त थोड़ा सा normal हो जाएगा, फिर अकेले बेहतर feel करेगा, depression, anxiety and all of this, ठीक है? और ये टर्म्स जितनी बोलने में हल्की होती है ना, डिप्रेशन है, दिस equally threatening. There may even be some far-reaching implications of drug or alcohol abuse. If an abuser is unable to get money to buy drugs, जो मैं already आपको बोल रही थी, it may turn to stealing then. The adverse effects are just not restricted to the person who's using drugs. A drug alcohol addict becomes the cause of mental and financial distress to his or her family and friends. So all the people associated with the drug addict are dragged into this in some way or the other. Those who take drugs intravenously are much more likely to acquire serious infections like AIDS and HB, जो हम अभी देख रहे थे, because वो syringes वगैरह से भी होता है. The viruses which are responsible for these diseases are transferred from one person to another by sharing of infected needles and syringes. Both AIDS and HB infections are chronic infections and ultimately fatal. We saw there was no treatment for them. Both can be transmitted through sexual contact or infected blood. The use of alcohol during adolescence may also have long-term effects. It could lead to heavy drinking in adulthood. The chronic use of drugs and alcohol damages nervous system and liver. Cirrhosis जिसको बोलते हैं, damages the liver. The use of drugs and alcohol during pregnancy is also known to adversely affect the fetus. Another misuse of drugs is what certain sports persons do again to enhance their performance. The misuse narcotic analgesics, anabolic steroids, diuretics, and certain hormones in sports to increase muscle strength and bulk and to promote aggressiveness and as a result increase the athletic performance. So this is सरासर cheating है. मतलब क्या हो रहा है, sports persons would take drugs out of their own abilities, not believing in their own confidence, being so out of the box जाके they would use narcotics, anabolic steroids, diuretics, और उससे उनको लगेगा कि हम बहुत जी energetic हो गए, now we can win. The side effects of the use of anabolic steroids in females include masculinization, features like males, increased aggressiveness, mood swings, depression, abnormal menstrual cycles, excessive hair growth on the face and body, enlargement of clitoris, deepening of voice. In males, it includes acne, increased aggressiveness, mood swings, depression, reduction of size of the testicles, decreased sperm production, potential for kidney and liver dysfunction, breast enlargement, premature baldness. इसको gynecomastia भी बोलते हैं, enlargement of the prostate gland. These effects may be permanent with prolonged use. In the adolescent male or female, severe facial and body acne and premature closure of the growth centers of the long bones may result in stunted growth. इसमें कुछ explanatory नहीं है, it's just all of the causes that it may that may result in eventually जब एक a person is is involved in intake of drugs. Fine. So again, anabolic steroids के इतने सारे हमने देखे अभी. A person might feel energy for a certain amount of time, but then you see so many, all this paragraph भर के with the side effects. ठीक है, females masculinization, males में sterility. Fine, and all of that. Prevention and control. The age-old adage of prevention is better than cure. बचपन से सुन रहे, holds true here also. It is true that habits such as smoking, taking drug or alcohol are more likely to be taken up at a young age, more during adolescence. Hence, it's best to identify the situations that may push an adolescent towards use of drugs or alcohol and to take remedial measures well in time. In this regard, the parents and the teachers have a special responsibility. Parenting that combines with high levels of nurturance and consistent discipline has been associated with lowered risk of substance abuse. Again, parents का भी इसमें बहुत बड़ा हाथ होता है. You have to give certain amount of limits also to the children. बहुत ज़्यादा प्यार नहीं, बहुत ज़्यादा डांट नहीं. There has to be a certain balance. Some of the measures mentioned here would be particularly useful for prevention and control of alcohol and drug abuse among adolescents. So, if the adolescents are only so vulnerable to all of this, why not take care of them at the very peak stages wherein they're most likely to take to such things? So we have avoid undue peer pressure. Every person has his or her own choice and personality which should be respected and nurtured. You cannot be looking down upon somebody else just based upon certain very very surface level superficial facts कि आप बोलते हैं कि नहीं जी चले, he or she is out of the he's just the odd one out. Fine, you cannot do that to anybody. It should not be pushed unduly to perform beyond his or her threshold limits, be it studies, sports or other activities, not pressurizing it to a level के फिर बंदा will take to other stuff. Education and counseling, educating and counseling him or her to face problems and stresses and to accept disappointments and failures as a part of life. It's also very important. Usually people are not able to accept, they're not able to take all of the disappointments in life. Well, life's not a bed of roses for anybody, so we have to accept life the way it comes to us. That's also a very important thing, accepting whatever comes. Seeking help from parents and peers. Help from parents and peers should be sought immediately so that they can guide appropriately, obviously because they're the elders. Help may be sought from close and trusted friends. This would help young to vent their feelings of anxiety and guilt. Then you have looking for danger signs. Alert parents and teachers need to look for and identify the danger signs. You have to look around what's going on, right? Even friends, they can also play a very important role. If find somebody using drugs or alcohol, should not hesitate to bring this to the notice of parents or teacher in the best interest of the person concerned, right? This would help in initiating proper remedial steps or treatment at the proper time. Alright, then you have seeking professional and medical help. A lot of help is available in the form of highly qualified psychologists, psychiatrists in de-addiction and rehabilitation programs. This is something really, scientifically, medically हम इसको treat कर रहे हैं अगर चीज़ें बहुत out of control हो गई. So the family, friends cannot do it anymore. So we have certain specified psychologists who can take care of this really well. Alright, who have unfortunately gotten the quagmire of drug or alcohol abuse. With such help, the affected individual with sufficient efforts and willpower can get rid of the problem completely and lead a perfectly normal and healthy life. So with that, we come to an end of the lesson. I hope it was helpful to you. And I tried to do it in the least possible time because I know we watch one shots when we're obviously not having a lot of time to go through all of the series and all of the sessions. So I just hope it was helpful to you, and I just hope I was able to cover every line of it in a true sense. So thank you all of you. I'll be waiting for you in my next one. Thank you.